The 20-month war in Ukraine was brutal and detrimental for both sides, especially for the invading Russian troops. After losing hundreds of armored vehicles in direct attacks on Ukrainian positions in and around Avdiivka, in the Donbass region of eastern Ukraine, Russian armed forces turned to dismounted infantry attacks. Tactically, it's not a bad idea. Ukrainian brigades switched from mounted to dismounted attacks this summer during their counteroffensive in southern Ukraine and, as a result, advanced 10 or a dozen miles along at least two important axes. However, infantry attacks can be risky when the enemy is surrounded. The weather is wet and cold. Perhaps worst of all, soldiers on foot do not have good air and artillery support. Russian forces first attacked Avdiivka in mid-October, just as Ukraine's counteroffensive in Zaporizhia and Donetsk oblasts slowed. Fighters of the K2 Battalion of the 54th Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine stormed the stronghold of the Russian invaders in one of the forest tracts. The pre-service battalion reported this on its YouTube channel by publishing related video clips, edited from footage taken by unmanned aerial vehicles whose operators adjust the course of the battle, and action cameras on soldiers' tanks and helmets. At first, the infantrymen K2 tried to overthrow the enemy on their own. It did not work, since the invaders competently equipped their positions and confidently defended themselves. Then the K2 tanks started working. First, they took turns approaching the location and firing weapons until they completely destroyed it. Russian troops resumed operations near Avdiivka and have confirmed progress. Geolocation video showed that Russian troops were advancing north of Krasnohorivka, a settlement 7 kilometers northwest of Avdiivka. Some Russian mill bloggers zoomed in on footage purportedly showing some Ukrainian troops withdrawing from positions in the industrial zone on the southern side of Avdiivka. But other mill bloggers claimed that Russian troops had not yet completely taken control of the industrial zone. Ukraine's military said it repulsed Russian ground attacks east and south of Novokalinov and near Novobakhmutivka, all settlements within 15 kilometers of Avdiivka. Other video footage shows fighters from the 109th Separate Territorial Defense Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces destroying a tank, 2 122mm D-30 howitzers, a Barrier T satellite communication system, a light-armored multi-purpose tractor, and a dozen vehicles Russian invaders. This is the weekly profit of the brigade's unmanned aerial vehicle unit attacks, as reported by its serviceman and former People's Deputy of Ukraine Yegor Fursov on his page on the social network X. He released related videos edited from footage taken by kamikaze drones and controlled unmanned aerial vehicles. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian military continues to maintain positions on the left bank of the Dnipro River in Kherson Oblast. Ukraine said its country's armed forces inflicted serious damage on Russian troops in the region and Moscow had suffered colossal losses. Russia said last week that its Marines, aviation and artillery were disrupting Ukraine's efforts to gain a firm foothold on the eastern bank of the Dnipro River. The successful crossing of the Dnipro left Ukrainian forces exposed between the river and marshland on one side and dug into Russian positions on the other. Fighters of the 10th Separate Operational Response Unit of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine in the Swativ direction during the night destroyed 2 armored fighting vehicles, 2 ammunition depots, and 3 vehicles of Russian invaders. In addition, they disabled a self-propelled artillery installation, 2 BBMs, 3 passenger cars, and 1 URAL truck belonging to the invaders. The DPSU Press Center announced this on its media resource. Probably, the night bombing was preceded by daytime reconnaissance of the invaders' targets with small reconnaissance drones. The Telegram channel Donbass Operative also released a video recorded by an unmanned aerial vehicle, with the comment, Avdiivka district, Katsep Equipment Cemetery. In fact, there were 3 graves located next to each other in a field with a completely destroyed forest path. The first one, at least 10 units of equipment, a little further away another one with 5, and to the right another one of the same. Together, we have at least 20 destroyed and damaged armored fighting vehicles, or 2 companies. Ukrainian troops claimed they had eliminated the enemy along the front line towards Melitopol, southern Ukraine. The attack on the village of Robotyne, Zaporizhia Oblast, towards Melitopol on the Sea of Azov was Ukraine's main axis of attack during its counteroffensive. The latest report from the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces this morning said that the recent offensive caused the occupation forces to lose manpower and equipment. They did not specify the losses. In the Bakhmut area, Russian invaders in 4 armored fighting vehicles at dawn unsuccessfully tried to storm the positions of the 92nd Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, named after the head of the army, Ivan Serk. However, the Ukrainians set fire to 2 enemy anti-aircraft guns on approach. This was announced by the Telegram channel Donbass Operative by publishing a relevant video. The first clip is taken from the monitor of the domestic anti-tank missile complex Stugna. It records a direct hit on 1 BBM. The second was shot by an unmanned aerial vehicle, indicating the destruction of another armored vehicle with a landing party. Ukraine's Air Force said it destroyed 8 of 9 attack drones launched overnight by Russia. There have been no reports of damage or the location of the remaining drone attacks. The attack, which the Air Force said was launched from the southeast, came a day after what Ukrainian officials said was the largest drone strike on Russia in the war. Ukraine has warned in recent weeks that Russia would target critical infrastructure in a winter air campaign, as it did last year.